This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax.
Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back.
And then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more.
Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today.
An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day.
An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy.
All so you can get the most money back guaranteed.
No waiting, no wondering, no worries.
Now this is taxes.
Get an expert now on TurboTax.com.
Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
This podcast is brought to you by eHarmony, the dating app to find someone you can be yourself with. Ever wondered if there's a better way to gauge your compatibility with other people on dating apps? Well, there is on eHarmony. Thanks to their compatibility quiz, you can see what makes you compatible with other members. On eHarmony, you're one step closer to finding someone you can be yourself with without having to pretend to be someone you're not. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up today.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Wondery.
This episode brought to you by the following patrons: Leaf Girl, Min, Jason, Sex Caliber Bones a lot, Madeline, Alyssa, Vixen, Holly, Laura, Jeremy with the laser eyes, Allie, Logan, Libby, Aaron, Kristen, Tia, and Jonathan. And all the patrons want you to know you're loved, you're listened to, and you're a valuable member of this awesome Horror Virgin community. And if you want to hang out with us, do so in the Facebook group where we'll be debating if having sex with a humanoid-looking robot is cheating or not. Daily, at least this week.
Subservience. Subservience. Thank you for tuning into Horror Virgin. I'm Paige.
And I'm your Horror Virgin Todd, which means I don't like scary movies, but you guys make me watch them. And this week, because Paige is in love with a man named Massimo, we watched Subservience.
Okay. This is not entirely my fault. I need to lay out how this happened.
I feel like some of the blame is going to be cast in my direction.
Absolutely.
And I'll say this, it should, because I suggested you to watch this, and I think I even said, it's kind of a horror movie.
This is a horror movie. This is just sexy Mithrigan.
Oof, if Mithrigan could fuck, that would be this movie.
That'd be this movie.
Yeah.
I have some questions about this movie. I'll get to them momentarily after I set the scene for how this happened. Now, if you are familiar with our sister pod, Romancing the Pod, you know that we have done 3 movies in the 365 series. Are they good? No.
Not a one of them.
Will we do the next one? Absolutely.
They have a lawnmower named Larry, I think. So like
George. It's George the lawnmower robot.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who don't listen to Romancing the Pod, because I know there's some of you out there, which what are you doing with your life? But whatever. For those of you who don't listen, let me give you a little bit of information about 365 and how it relates to why we chose this movie today. Now, 365 is a Polish fan fiction of 50 Shades of Grey, which is, of course, fan fiction of Twilight.
So let me just set this up. So like, you know, in the Substance page, the first iteration is like fine. It's like a younger, more, glowy version of Demi Moore or whatever.
Right.
The 365 is definitely the
Monstro
Elizabeth
Eliza Sue.
Yeah, like that whole thing. Like, definitely it's that, right? It's the 3rd iteration, and it is like lost the nugget that made it watchable. So instead, they put in a bunch of like hot stupids that you're just like, I guess it doesn't matter. Like on Romance in the Pod, we have a roar scale because of, I think it's the
Of
second
365
365.
too. Yeah, it was 365 too.
Yeah.
365 this day, 365 the next day. Yes, it's 365 this day.
I hate everything about all the titles you just said. But in that one, he like goes to, I'm just going to say, take her sexually.
Right.
And you hear a legit lion roar. Like the Foley artist said, you know what this needs? A sexy little lion roar. Like that
Yes.
Foley artist was the Russian dude from Eurovision. Like, no, it doesn't need that.
On the savannah, I'm a lion lover.
Anyway,
Yes.
so when I saw Netflix had a horror movie with Megan Fox and this hot stupid, and he's not hot stupid, he is just hot. He's actually way better acting in this
he's pretty
than he
good
has
in this.
any right to be because of what I've seen him do in 365. Like I was
Right,
shocked
right.
he could like act at all, honestly.
At all. And here's the thing. Here's the tough thing, okay? Because like I feel like us having seen all the 365 movies, which he also did the soundtrack for, by the way, lest you forget the pop music stylings of Michele Morrone.
I did not forget. Paige, I have not forgot since the first scene when his dad got shot from a sniper from space.
Nor when he played his twin in the sequel.
I hate that both of those are facts in the world of 365 and that you made me watch those movies.
Because we've seen those.
Yes.
When you saw that this movie existed and you were like, holy shit, it's the guy from 365 and Megan Fox in sexy robot sci-fi horror. We have to watch this. Paige, I need you to watch this. It's on Netflix. I had expectations for what this would be. They were extremely low. I then watched this movie and was like, wait, is this almost good? What? It's not great. It's not great.
Paige, it is definitely paint by numbers like,
Sure.
nanny goes crazy, tries to kill mom,
Yes.
like slasher movie kind of a thing.
Right. And this is where my questions come in because
Okay.
I would say this is a horror movie. It is very much Sexy Mithrigan. But that made me wonder, what came first? Do you think that this script was always sexy? Or do you think they were like, well, we've got the guy from 365 and a shower he can fit in, so...
Which is saying something. Normally, he demands a very large shower if we learned from 365.
Big boy.
But Paige,
yes.
I think that this was written by ChatGPT 14 days ago because Netflix was like, I need to shit out another movie that like hot stupids are in. And that's what this is. But it's way better than the 365 movies, which is honestly, guys, the lowest bar of movie.
It's the lowest and yet the highest bar because it's the lowest bar in that so many things are wrong. And it is translated from Polish and Italian into English by someone who is not a native English speaker. No shade to non-native English speakers, but holy crap is the syntax wonky. But in that, it's like they do so much wrong, you almost can't believe it, and that makes it watchable because you're like, what's gonna happen next? He shot a man's hands for looking at her. Like, what are we gonna do?
God, I honestly forgot. He stigmata'd a dude for looking at his wife.
Shot a man's hands because she wore a short skirt. It was a very complicated series of films.
And it also just proves that they're perfect together because she didn't immediately leave that person and never look back. She was like, man, he really loves me.
Well, she was on a boat because he had kidnapped her.
Because of the implication, Paige. I understand. Like, I've seen the movies. I get it.
Right.
Man, it's we have to stop talking about the 365-verse because it is trash.
But okay, all this to say, because this movie, there are grains of interesting dialogue, and I don't mean character dialogue, I mean like greater societal dialogue in this movie around automation.
Oh, Paige.
Our reliance on technology. Like, there are pieces of this movie that I was like, okay, this movie's trying to say something. And then we'll get like a long sweeping shot up his bicep and across his shoulders. And I was like, who is this movie for? And it's me. But like, other than that, I was like, did they say, we have the 365 guy, so let's make sure we shoot his biceps so that we can make this pencil? Or Was this always a horny script? And they were like, we got to find a himbo like the guy from 365. And they're like, fun fact, he is available. Like, which happened first? Maybe we'll never know.
I reacted very differently during those long sweeping shots of his biceps and shoulders. I was just like, man, this guy has a lot of tattoos and some are bad.
Oh, I love him. Don't care. I mean, my husband also has a bad tattoo, so clearly I have a pretty high bar.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I really did love the like undertones of like class and the
There's
way
a real
AI
script.
is going to destroy the economy unless safeguards are put in place. And I love that this movie just blatantly ignores all of that because Megan Fox and Massimo were hot or whatever.
Yes.
And they make that the focal point. And man, I loved it. I thought it was insane that like they could program Megan Fox like she was the most advanced AI, so she like could make a joke. Like that obviously is the highest form of intelligence apparently, which like, listen.
Look, we've all seen Ex Machina, yeah.
I get it, yeah, like I get it. But the first time she has sex, she emotionally attaches to that person so hardcore, she wants to kill the world, Paige. It is concerning. I don't know what happened with her and Machine Gun Kelly, but like, is he okay? I have not seen him in a while, and she seems very effective at murder.
Well, Todd, machine is in the name. Maybe he's the robot that fell in love with her. Okay, but like when we get to the sex scenes, we got to talk about them. And I know normally this would be a romancing the pod conversation, but there are some consensual implications where consent is not present in either of the scenes. With Megan Fox. With his wife, obviously, it's different. But
do you mean like
he's drunk both times?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I thought you meant from her. And I'm like, I don't even know, like, should we address it like they're a person because they are a robot? So like,
I mean, that robot sexually assaults this man twice.
Yeah, because, my favorite part of this whole thing is like the movie makes it so that the wife gave Alice the idea to bang her husband. It's like so like almost
there's so
offensive.
much bonkers shit in this movie.
I mean, obviously she doesn't realize she's doing that at the time. It's not like that. Yeah. It's just like you have to do what's best for Nick, even if Nick doesn't know it's best for him. Like kind of a thing.
Even if he doesn't want you to. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. So that sexual assault, the movie is like, yeah, that's his wife's fault.
Yeah. He needed to calm down.
I guess my question is it cheating? Because Megan Fox, Alice, is not a person, but it's like so lifelike. I don't know.
That's a good question because he brings this up in the movie.
Yeah, I don't really think they effectively address it though, because I think that like if there's a scale of infidelity, this is definitely on it somewhere. But
yes,
like how close to cheating? How close to actual, I don't know. It just seems like it's more than a vibrator with AI built in or something like that, you know?
So now this is a question that has permeated my friend group for a hilarious reason. Let's talk about it. So
I can think of a reason that this would be a topic of conversation amongst you and your friends, your gal pals.
Not my gal pals, my guy pals. So I do other entertainment things outside these podcasts.
A lot.
And sometimes those have sponsors. And one of the sponsors for a thing that I do is something called the auto blow. Are you familiar with the auto blow?
I can imagine what it is based upon the context of this conversation, but no.
Let me...
does it automatically blow you?
Yeah, it does.
That seems dangerous. Like, I don't want to put my dick in anything mechanical.
Well, I'll reveal who I asked it of towards the end. Anyway, one of them is the size of a vacuum cleaner, which terrifies me. And the other is like a smaller handheld version, but both of them can connect to the internet and sync to porn so that it seems like you are being blowed the same way it is happening in the porn. That's the whole point of the auto blow.
Okay.
Now, when they came on as sponsors, they gave a handful of people
oh my God.
Auto blows.
Did it auto blow their minds, Paige?
Okay. Varying responses because one of the people they gave them to, he got two and gave one away. But the one he kept was the smaller one.
Hey, buddy, weird call, I get. But like, hey, I got this let's just say I got a sponsor and they gave us multiple products and I don't need 2. I only have 1 dick. So do you want the other one for your dick? Like, that's a conversation I wouldn't want to have with anybody. By the way, Dad, I'm going to pick up milk on the way home. Click. I don't know why I would ever call anybody and offer them an auto blow.
He didn't have to. The guy was there when it got delivered. And he was like, is this the size of a vacuum cleaner? You take it. So he kept the small one. And I was like, I need reports back from everyone who received an auto blow. And it was multiple people. And the consensus from multiple people is it's fucking incredible.
Oh my God.
And unfortunately, most of their significant others are not happy about it. And I being one of the few ladies, because all of their ladies are mad. I'm a lady that laughed at all of them. And they were like, well, how would you feel if Jake had one? And I was like, honestly, my mouth is tired as it is.
Right.
So like I could hand off some duties. And then I asked Jake, I was like, do you want one? Because I could get you a free one.
Because I know
was like,
a guy who's got 2 and only 1 dick.
I know
like, I could probably get you one, babe.
He was like, no, I'll get back to you. He never got back to me. Now, the guy who got the big one, that's the size of a vacuum cleaner. I asked him, I was like, bro, did you try that? Like, I gotta know, because this is the scary one. Like, the small one, I understand. It's just a fleshlight that's connected to the internet. This takes up real estate in your house.
I'm not gonna fuck my Roomba. Like, that's too much.
Dude, it's bigger than a Roomba. I'm talking old vacuum cleaner. Like, that's how big this shit is.
Somebody call Kirby, because this shit blows. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And so 2 guys got that one. One of them, the one I asked, he was like, hell no, I'm scared it's going to tear my dick off.
Same.
I was
That's
like,
exactly me right
100%.
there. Yeah. I would never have sex with Megan Fox because
she might tear your dick off.
Yeah. I've seen Jennifer's Body. I've seen this movie.
Yes.
I don't trust it.
I've seen teeth. I don't trust it. Now, the other guy tried it. One of the other guys that got the big one tried it.
It's ballsy.
And he said, it's incredible, but it doesn't know when to stop. So you have to manually turn it off. and so it's like incredible and super painful. And I'm like, what a terrible invention. Like, what is this? Anyway, so all this to say, I think there is a limit, right?
So what you're saying, all the Massimos that you know are happy with it. All of their spousimoses are not.
Yeah, they're not necessarily thrilled. I think for me, the point that the wife brings up of like, she has a face, she takes care of our kids. That to me really makes a difference.
It's too lifelike. It's
too
not
lifelike.
Just a sex toy, I guess is what I'm trying to get
right.
at. It is like,
yes,
it is closer to cheating than a sex toy.
And I will tell you, personally, I don't think I'd have a problem with the auto blow. That because to me, that is still definitively a toy, right?
Sure, because it doesn't have a face. You don't have to talk to it.
You can't talk to it. Yeah. Yeah, I think Megan Fox is different because she interacts with you.
Yeah. I agree. But it's like, I don't know where that line is because it's like not maybe a binary thing, I suppose, because it's now people are out here fucking robots, guys. It's wild in these streets.
Would you fuck a robot? Like, if Natalie gave the okay, would you fuck a robot?
I don't
or
think so.
Or are you too afraid of your dick being torn off?
That. 100% that. And I guess Natalie could do the same thing, but like, I trust her more.
I don't know. I think it would depend on, like, because we're talking about a robot, not just a mechanized toy that's a little extreme.
No.
Like, we're talking about a robot.
We're fucking a fleshy C-3PO. Like, that's what we're doing in this scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to have sex with anything that nervous, right? Like, C-3PO, British and nervous. I wouldn't want to have sex with that.
I mean, he is human-cyborg relations. I don't know. If they could make me like a 1980s Kurt Russell or Kyle Reese or some shit, ooh, tempting. But I don't know how fun Jake would find. I think Jake might be like, no. I tried to get him to watch this, but he didn't.
But if it was Han Solo, you'd be like, are you down to smash?
Ooh.
It took me all of what you just said to think up that joke. But Paige, maybe we should just go through this crazy movie scene by scene.
We should. And I will preface this by saying my notes are very short because not much happens in this movie. You could trim a half hour out of it and it's only about 115 minutes long.
The whole movie's 145.
Yeah.
If you took 30 minutes out of it, it's probably better. And
Sure.
it's almost not even a movie. It's like 90 minutes. The stuff that they would have to trim out to make that cut, though, is like the class stuff, which is like, that's the stuff I actually cared about.
Todd, they wouldn't even. It would just be the long shots. Because there's so many times of just long establishing shots. And I'm like, if you cut these, it's like 15 minutes right there.
You could.
Anyway, we open on some basic credits over a forest near a city. We don't know where the city is. I do like that they don't establish that it's just like Metropolis, period.
There's a lot of movies that like that do this sort of a thing where it's like near future, but they don't tell you when it is. Like I'm thinking of Gattaca is one. Simone is one. Like the guy who did Gattaca does a lot of movies that are near future.
Mithrigan
is also one. Yeah.
But it does tell us where Mithrigan is. But in this, we don't know when, we don't know where, just near future somewhere.
Yeah.
But we open on a city and we're cutting back and forth between the main character, Nick, driving at night with his kids in the car, and sometime in the near past, where his wife woke up in the morning. They were going to potentially have morning sex before he went to work, and she has a heart attack.
Yeah. Which is like, it's all done in flashback. Like this whole thing.
Yes.
They are at Robot IKEA in the first 2 minutes of the movie.
Yes.
It is crazy how fast they get to the plot.
And you almost think she's dead. You will find out that mom's alive and she just needs a heart transplant.
I thought she was dead too.
I thought she was dead too. But so they go to Robot IKEA. And Robot IKEA is basically like, hey, we have all these different models for different things around the house. And some of them are for childcare or just as a maid or whatever.
Yeah.
And you realize he's basically getting a model to try and help him care for the kids because he's just overwhelmed.
Yeah. He's got a full-time job. His wife, who also works, they talk about it, but like, they don't really address this at all. But like, I guess his wife just worked full-time and fully took care of all the kid stuff because he like can't juggle it all, I guess. Whereas she was.
I don't even think it's that because he seems to still know how to care for the kids.
Yeah.
It's just too much for one person to do.
It is a lot.
So I think they were probably splitting some of those tasks, but then without her, it's all falling to him.
It is too much. Yeah. Okay. But as he's like looking at some male presenting model, I don't know.
Yeah. Just a very generic one. Yeah.
He turns to like ask his daughter, should we get this one or whatever? And then the daughter is gone.
She gone.
Like it has run off.
Yes. And she's walking around. Now, we did find out that as they were walking into Robot IKEA, the daughter is like, hey, can you make lasagna? And he's like, that's your mom's recipe.
Yeah.
So it's like, I can make it, but I don't know how she does it, specially or whatever. Which like, hey, I've got recipes that are mine. I get it.
You wouldn't even tell your husband how to make it for your children, though? That seems strange to me.
Oh, no. Well, here's the thing. Sometimes you don't know you're going to die. So, like, if I knew I was going to die, like on my deathbed, I'd be like, okay, you can know. But then, like, just day to day, it's fun to keep the mystique of like, I don't know, how did that Tom Cruise coconut cake get here?
The answer is always Scientology.
Thetans.
What you should do, Paige, is like when you're on your deathbed and your kids are like, how do you make the 5-spotted meatloaf or whatever the fuck it's going to be? I don't know. You have them lean in and you be like, I made it with love. Fuck y'all. I'm taking it to the grave. Oh.
Die.
Last words.
You're like, you didn't earn it. Anyway, it's Bob's lasagna recipe. So Isla, his little girl, runs upstairs and she finds a robot that's cooking, which is the Megan Fox one.
Yeah.
Which they gave her a knife. Why would you do that?
She even asks, do you make lasagna?
Right. Do you know how to make lasagna? But of course, her dad panics because he's like, oh my God, she was there, then she wasn't. Which, like, every parent has a story of like, they were right there and then they were gone.
Yeah.
And there was nothing you could do. And it's just him. So he like, he's having to juggle him and he's got the stroller.
I remember once when I was a kid, my mom had 4 kids. She was a working single mom.
Yep.
I went to school and then just like ran away from school. And I got picked up by some lady and she took me to her house and called the cops. because I was just a loose 6-year-old on the North Carolina streets.
Oh, geez.
And so, yeah, it happens, man. It happens.
Well, in that case, I'm like, your mom took you to where you were supposed to be at school.
Yeah.
I'm sure your mom had a lot of questions for school about how that happened.
I'm sure. They installed a door that you could not get out of unless you were a certain height, and that took care of that problem.
Anyway, so he immediately notifies store security of like, we got to find this kid.
Yeah.
Immediately. And Megan Fox walks up and is like, is this your kid? And he's like, yes. And she's like, oh my God, can we get this robot? Because she might be able to make lasagna. And he's like, yeah, I guess. And they do say they're like, this is the Eon series. They're really good with emotions and they can deal with children really well because they're in touch with their emotions. And I'm like, sounds like foreshadowing.
It is.
But we cut to the next day. He's trying to get the kids ready for school. He's trying to get to work. They're out of milk. He's trying to get everyone breakfast, fed, changed, whatever. And who should arrive but the delivery of the Megan Fox robot? And she comes in. She's like, what do you need me to do? And he's like, I kind of just need you out of the way for the moment. Like, I got to get the kids to school and then I'll come deal with this later. And she's like, okay, but you're the owner, so you get to designate the commands. And he's like, all right, if you could just like clean up around here, whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay.
But it is very much like he doesn't make himself the primary owner and the only primary owner out of like spite or like because he has some ulterior motive to like bang out some grief on this sex bot. It's because he's like in a rush and his wife's in the hospital. So like, we can deal with this later. I got to get out the door. Like, just tidy up or whatever. And Alice, who the daughter eventually ends up naming her, just goes about cleaning up.
She just goes about cleaning up. She orders all the groceries they need, which that is a thing that I refuse to turn on because you can have services that do that now. But I'm like, what if they order everything I need and it's like $400 and I didn't plan for that? Like, that's always my panic.
Yeah.
Is like, I never buy all the groceries at once. That's just me.
You got to get that foreman money. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to be the foreman to make them kind of bucks.
Oh, I thought you meant George Foreman. Like, you got to buy all the stuff you need for a George Foreman grill.
No.
And I was like, hell yeah. Anyway, yes. So she cleans up the house. It's all spotless. They come home. She makes dinner. What does she make? Lasagna. But it's not the same as her mom's.
I did love that, like, the daughter was like, yeah, I guess it's lasagna, but it's not very good. It's like so
it's
mean.
fine.
Although Alice doesn't really have emotions, right? Like, I guess, so it's fine.
Allegedly. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I mean, there is a moment in the movie where I'm like, oh, she is trying to seduce him, and it's way before they start fooling around.
Oh, yeah. I almost day one, it seems like, because in this, she does seem upset, even though she doesn't have emotions.
Yeah.
And this is where, like, the baby's crying, but he's still picking the baby up. Like, he's still doing a lot of the work, even though she's there.
And this is one of the moments where she, like, calls back to it because he says, as he's picking up his child, he calls him, like, in a loving sort of jovial way, like, oh, my little burden.
Right.
Because he's like having to hold him and feed him or whatever. And she logs that away.
Because he's eating and holding him at the same time. Yeah, he's trying to juggle.
Yeah. And so, like, Mithrigan Fox is like,
oh my God, Mithrigan Fox.
How did we not see that until now? But
I don't know.
She clocks that away because when she tries to murder this child in the bathtub later, that's what she says to him.
She calls him a little bird.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, we cut to that night and the young daughter is trying to get cookies out of the cookie jar in the kitchen. She climbs up on a chair and then falls, letting the cookie jar fall and break. It wakes him up, but who got there first just in time to catch her? But Alice, aka Mithrigan Fox, and she does injure her leg in the process.
Yeah.
Now, they get the daughter back to bed, but we cut to Mithrigan Fox trying to like do home surgery on her leg. And of course she's in like a skimpy bikini that is whatever, I guess, the like base clothing that the robot wears.
I guess you would just call it underwear, Paige. Like,
sure.
It does have genitalia, I guess, on some level because
okay, let's fucking talk about this. Why they build a fuckable robot?
So you can fuck it, Paige. Like, you know the answer to that.
I know, but like, shouldn't you buy a fuck model and a chore model? Or maybe the fuck model's an upgrade?
I definitely think it's an upgrade. Like, I'm not joking. Like, I bet most just like iron and cook and clean and take care of your kids. But if you get the sex upgrade for $69.99, she gonna fuck you. Or he gonna fuck you, whatever.
Yeah, clearly, when we meet his co-workers, a sim is what they call them, later, simulated person.
Right.
Later, where he has absolutely, definitely been, unfortunately, having what seems like an unwilling and sad sexual relationship with that robot, and definitely beating it.
Oh, definitely at least beating it. Yeah.
Well, and I was like, these are the places where this movie is kind of saying some shit about like our over-reliance on technology devaluing basic human decency.
And life. Yeah.
And life.
But it doesn't really get into that because, like, aren't these two main characters sexy or whatever?
Or whatever. But he gives her in this scene some of Maggie, his wife's clothes, so that her now ruined outfit, she can just put on other clothes or whatever. But that she takes that as like, oh, I can always wear her clothes.
Paige, this is what I call in this movie the Dobby moment, where she goes off the leash. You know what I'm saying? He gave her clothing, Paige.
Master has given Dobby a sock. Dobby is free.
Why is this sock so sticky, Massimo?
Oh no. I mean, oh, he does basically give her clothes like Dobby, and she's free.
Yeah.
At that point. Oof,
yeah.
Magoof.
I think at this moment, she's like, oh, he showed me any kind of kindness.
Right.
I'm going to destroy this man's life trying to seduce him.
Oh my God. I mean, she goes full, what is it? What a dangerous liaisons. Like all of them, you know the ones, you know, the like, you know, he looked at me and now I have to ruin his life.
It is like the affair partner going crazy, trying to murder the current spouse. Right. Movie trope. Like, that's all this is, really.
Can I tell you what I ended up watching late at night on TV the other day was Wild Things, and I was like, there's a plot to this? And it is kind of this.
Paige, I watched that movie a lot as a younger man, I should say. And there is no plot that I remember.
It's a full court case. It's a courtroom drama.
I disagree.
And I was like, what?
I seem to remember a scene with a pool, but the movie ends pretty shortly after that when I go to sleep. So, like, I don't remember.
So, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, they go to visit Maggie in the hospital. And this is the first time she meets Alice and was like, I thought you were going to get an old butler one. And he's just like, oh, your daughter picked her out. And she's like, uh-huh. Sure she did. And
she's like, I know your type. And he's like, what? I didn't.
What?
No, your daughter. It's your daughter's fault.
It's the little girl. I didn't have anything to do with it.
But like Paige, the writer of this movie is like, but like, guys, it really was the girl. Like, he didn't do it on purpose. Even though he was like, nice.
Nice.
Yeah, he saw her. He knows. Yeah.
He knows. But it is very clear in that moment that he still really loves his wife.
Yes, I think he loves his wife throughout this whole movie. I just think he's an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, I would also argue that, she does actively make advances while he is incapacitated. Now, do I think that there were warning signs before? Sure, but he is still a victim here.
Yes, I definitely think he is a victim on many levels. Yes. I think you are looking at him through Thickums covered glasses a little bit because he definitely made mistakes in this too.
Oh, he does. But I think the mistakes he makes are more on the job site timeline that we're going to get to right now, where like that he is doing some dumb shit.
Yeah.
But like at home, I think he's just trying to get by and she's just like, he's drunk. Now we move. and I'm like, yikes. Anyway, we cut to his job. And he's on the work site and he finds out that they're going to basically replace everyone with robots except for him. And he confronts basically the client who has hired his crew for this job. And he's like, hey, what are you going to do? Like, I've known these guys for 10 years. This is my crew.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you still get to keep your job. You're the foreman. And he's like, I don't love that still. Like,
I know. He's like, I'll walk because he did just say that like insurance requires that there be someone, actual person on the job site as foreman. So like we have to keep you on more or less is what this company man says. And he's just like, oh, great. So I get to keep my job? Cool. I mean, he is sort of pissed about his friends.
He's sad about it.
And the guy does correctly use his family and his fucking wife, who's currently in the hospital, as leverage because you know he's going to lose his insurance if he loses that job.
Yep.
So if he quits or gets fired, his wife might die. It is like dire straits that he cannot lose that job. And I get it. It just sucks. I'm not saying he should call a Nintendo hero, but if Luigi's out there and listening, some claims might need to be adjusted.
Of course.
But I do think that, like, this movie does sort of, like, ignore the classism stuff that is, like, the B plot.
Here's the thing. I feel like it does and it doesn't, because it does bring it up, but it doesn't land any of it, right? So, like, it raises it in the sense of, like, oh, shit, like, this is something we could talk about when talking about this movie. But the movie doesn't have a ton of conversations about it. It just, like, puts it out there for you, like, But that's why I have questions about, like, was this always a sexy movie? Or was this just a straight up robot horror movie that was a lot less sexy and a lot more overtly scary that they then made sexier because they had Massimo and Mathregan Fox?
No, I honestly feel like it was written by AI because they were like, hey, classism issues are big in movies right now, and these two people are hot. Let's put them in something. Do we have a script? No. Do we need one? I don't know. Probably not.
I don't know.
Let's just show up to set on Monday and see what happens.
Make a robot do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, there is a credited screenwriter, so...
Paige,
like,
there are two.
There are two. I would kill, if you are listening and you're either one of them, tell me if this was always sexy or if it had to become sexy for Netflix. Anyway, so he goes home and he's really upset. She sees that there's overdue bills. She picks them up. She sees that he's overworked and exhausted.
Yeah.
We cut to him in the garage working on his car to kind of unwind.
Yeah, he had a bad day at work. Like, he found out all of his friends were getting fired on Monday, more or less.
Yeah, exactly. So she changes the music and is like, hey, you didn't eat a lot.
Paige.
Yeah.
That's how I know the change had already taken place.
Yes.
Because he was listening to, like, you know, basic rock and roll. And then she comes in there and it's on a record player too. So, like,
which means you have to pick it up and change it.
She would have to, like, find the record and, like, change it out and all of that. It was crazy to me that it was on a record player. Anyway, she, like, plays 12-bar blues, which is, like, music to bone to. And so she just, like, seduces him.
Yeah. Well, and this is where she's like, you didn't eat a lot. He's like, I had a really bad day. And she's like, well, tell me about it. And he's like, well, they replaced my entire crew with fucking robots like you.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, well, I could see how that's upsetting, but why don't you drink more? Anyway, he kind of pushes her off.
Yeah.
Of like, look, I'm just trying to unwind. Why don't you put the kids to bed? Whatever. And she's like, okay, I'll put the kids to bed. Let me know if you need anything. But we cut to her showing Isla how to brush her teeth, and she's got the cool glowing mouth. And this is where, like, Isla, the little girl, is like, do people die in hospitals? And she's like, sometimes, like,
maybe we don't think about that right now. I mean, that's kind of what Mathregan Fox says. She's like, let's not think about it.
Let's not. But she goes downstairs after the kids are in bed, and he's up watching Casablanca.
Yeah.
And he's like, have you seen it? And she's like, oh, it's stored in my files. He's like, that's not the same as seeing it. Have you seen it? And she's like, what's the difference? And he's like, to experience it emotionally, to actually sit through it, not to just have the file of what it is.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, she's like, well, you could reset my memory and then I could see it because then I wouldn't have it. And he's like, okay. But what she doesn't tell him is that this reset kind of overrides the factory settings and allows her to do and feel a ton more.
Yeah, it sort of gives her the ability to change her own programming.
Right.
Which, like, I also think he's real dumb for saying, like, hey, erase it so you can watch it with me, which is not going to change the way that robot experiences the movie, in my opinion, because they're a robot. They don't have the feelings and emotions that we have. So this is him, I think, and this is going to tie into an argument I have later, Your Honor, but this is him, I think, confusing Alice like they're a real person and treating them like they're a real person, which leads me to be like it's more close to cheating than like having sex with an auto blow or whatever.
Sure. I would argue more of that if the sexual encounters that happened were more consensual.
They do say out loud it only happened once, but
Yes.
he does say at one point, the stuff we've been doing,
Right.
which makes it sound like it's been multiple times. So, like, who knows?
Well, there's at least two that we see on screen that one we'll get to that's also in the garage.
Yeah.
And I think some of it is him taking on the guilt of it, even though I would say he did not fully consent in either scenario or could not because of alcohol.
Yeah. The actual sex thing to me was kind of gross too because of what Mithrigan Fox does. Anyway,
we'll get to it.
there.
Yeah.
Ready to prioritize yourself in the new year? Your skin is a great place to start. Dime Beauty, founded by a master esthetician, is more than just a skincare company. With 4 skin-conscious categories, skincare, beauty, body care, and fragrance, Dime offers simple, spa-worthy products that will help you enter 2025 with confidence. Whether you're revitalizing your regimen with nourishing products or building one from scratch, Dime makes it easy. The Work System, our all-in-one best-selling routine, includes a cleanser of your choice, toner, serums, and moisturizers, taking the guesswork out of skincare for your healthiest, happiest skin yet. Dime's commitment to clean ingredients and sustainable packaging ensures every product is as gentle on your skin as it is on the planet. With thousands of glowing 5-star reviews and a loyal community, the results speak for themselves. Revive your skin and give yourself the routine refresh you deserve by visiting dimebeautyco.com. That's dimebeautyco.com. Your best skin awaits.
Designed for working professionals, Georgetown's Executive MBA features a hybrid format that delivers community on campus and convenience at home. Classes are held in person 1 weekend per month on our Washington, D.C. campus and 1 Saturday per month online, helping you balance work, life, and career advancement. Plus, you'll have the opportunity to participate in an international consulting project abroad with a global client. You'll get to choose from a variety of electives to customize your curriculum based on your interests and career goals. And enjoy the access only Georgetown provides in DC, with connections to industry experts, global leaders, and influential institutions. It's time to expand your understanding of how globalization shapes both global and local business strategy. Ready to build your legacy as a business leader? Earn Georgetown's Executive MBA. Explore the program at msb.georgetown.edu/EMBA-podcast.
Anyway, she watches the movie, and in the movie it just says, like, you know, if someone did a bad thing for your happiness, could you forgive them? And he's like, nobody ever loved me that much. So this is also building in what his wife will build onto in the next couple scenes of, like, the ends justify the means if you love someone.
Yeah. Which I guess Casablanca warped her brain a little bit about, like, what love is.
Yes.
Which, like, the whole thing, by the end of the movie, you're like, why would this robot do it? And then you're like, oh, because its frame of reference is, like, so skewed and, like, very myopic. It's like one little thing. So it's just insane. Like, there's no explaining it because it's, like, faulty programming.
Right. But we find out that they found a heart for his wife. They're prepping her for surgery. They all go to the hospital. And she has this moment where she kind of pulls Mithrigan Fox aside to basically be like, hey, I might die during this surgery. That's a real chance.
Yeah.
If that happens, I need to give you directions for how to take care of my family, because you're probably going to step into that role a lot more than you already are permanently if I die. And so she tells her, you know, things for the kids, but specifically she tells her things for Nick. She's like, the kids will be okay, but Nick drinks too much and you need to kind of watch him on that. And she's like, well, he's the head program, like he gives all the commands. And she's like, I get it, but sometimes taking care of people means doing things that they don't like or even hate if it's better in the long run, which a human would take that advice in moderation. But because this is a robot, they take it completely in binary. And so they're just like, great. So whatever I determine needs to be better in the long run, I can do whatever drastic thing I need to do.
Right. This is where she gets that idea.
Well, and not only just for this, but also for the baby and, like, she does a lot of stuff after this point.
Yeah, and the movie just told me it's the mom's fault for everything. Like, the mom did everything. It's her fault because they told Mithrigan Fox that she could do all this.
Right.
I thought it was wild that they like sort of blamed the mom unintentionally or perhaps intentionally.
I didn't take it as blaming so much as laying the groundwork for why this robot would take it this far when they don't have emotions, right? Like laying out the specific commands that frame this weird thing.
I definitely could see it that way because I do think Casablanca's part of it. I think this conversation with the wife is part of it.
The
like
clothes and all
the
of
Dobby
it.
moment. Yeah.
The Dobby moment. But they aren't able to replace her heart because the heart that she was on the list for gets caught in a storm and doesn't get to the hospital on time. So it looks like she's not going to get a heart, at least for now.
This is okay. This movie does the craziest thing to me, the viewer, twice in the movie. And that is make me think the wife is dead when the wife is not dead.
Yes.
Because it cuts to them like in the hospital. She's like not crying, but like very emotional. She's like in the fetal position laying on her side and he is behind her like, you know, sort of like caressing her and holding her. And he's like, I'll stay here till you go to sleep. And she's like, I think I just want to be alone, go home, more or less.
Yeah.
And so he does. And then the next time you hear them talking about her, he's like talking about how the plane couldn't get there because winds were at like 60 miles an hour and the rule is 55 miles an hour and the plane won't fly to bring the heart.
Right.
So they gave that heart to somebody else. So he's like, so because 5 miles an hour of wind, my kids don't grow up with a mother. And I was like, shit, she just died? And no, she didn't just die. And that's the second time they did that. The first time was in the first minute of the movie.
Right. I mean, I took that to mean that without this heart, she won't survive long, but still, it is a crazy way to phrase that.
Right?
100%.
So crazy.
The crazier part to me, did you remember, and it became like a viral internet video, I want to say it was Grey's Anatomy? Was it great? No, One Tree Hill. I think it's One Tree Hill.
They're pretty much the same. You know, both take place in a hospital.
Well, it's an episode in a hospital and somebody brings a heart in like a cooler and then trips and falls.
Eats it?
Yes!
Yeah.
That's all I could think about in this was a dog stealing the heart.
That's what actually happened. They just didn't want to like say it. They're like, yeah, it was really windy coming out of LaGuardia, so like we had to give your heart to Fluffins. I'm sorry, Fluffins? Yeah, it was
Fluffins?
a dog. They ate it. I'm sorry.
It was One Tree Hill, by the way. I just confirmed. Anyway, they can't do the operation. And he's telling her, it's like, there's still plenty of time, but we cut to him drinking heavily in the garage, like not even using a glass straight from the bottle. And she shows up and he basically has this monologue of like 5 miles of wind and my kids grow up without a mom.
Yeah.
And he is super upset and drops a wrench into the engine and goes to throw the bottle he's drinking and she catches his hand.
And she's like, you'll hurt yourself.
You'll hurt yourself. And he's like, is that a pulse? Because she has like an artificial pulse to make people feel more comfortable.
Yeah, well, the baby specifically.
Yeah. She puts his hand basically on her boob to feel her heart. And then she literally, because he's like, he's clearly visibly drunk and very sad. He's had a rough ass day.
Yeah, he's like going through a lot. His professional life is falling apart. His social circle that has surrounded him, that is all his like work people, his work friends have lost their jobs and look at him as like a company man now because he kept his job more or less. Although they do still sort of hang out, but we'll see how that goes.
We haven't gotten to that part, yeah.
And then his wife is dying. Like he's going through a lot.
He's going through a lot.
Let the man Vin Diesel his car, please.
Please.
But she's like, I just downloaded the hand job upgrade. Do you want to try it out?
My hand is an auto blow. And she doesn't ask, do you want to try it out? She just reaches down into his pants and he's like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And she's like, suffering's not productive. I can help you. And he drops the bottle and then he's like, I can't, and pushes her off.
He does, yeah.
And then goes for a run.
Yeah.
Now, I do think for some reason that this movie thinks that was him letting his guard down and letting it happen. And I'm like, no. The alcohol, the grief of it, like she's taking a step too far. But because like he goes for a run and he seems to feel super guilty about it, I'm like, I don't think the movie understands the consent issues going on with this robot.
I think the movie is telling me that he didn't want that to happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But Mithrigan Fox wanted to try out the new upgrade.
Yeah. But the next day at the job site, it's all robots and he's kind of bummed about it. But he goes to visit his wife and she's like, hey, tell the kids these things when I'm gone. And he's like,
yeah,
you're going to get a heart. It's going to be okay. Don't worry about it.
He's like, are you joking? Like, are you trying to be funny? And she's like, there's nothing funny about this. And it's like real sad. The lady who plays his wife does like a pretty good job in the movie.
She's great.
Yeah.
She's great.
That could be a combination of her just being like a good actress and acting next to Massimo, who is like not the best.
But he's doing good in this movie, though.
He's way better in this movie. Yeah, like he's understandable, which is great. That's a step up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like he does a really good job of, you believe the overwhelmed, sad, but still loves his, like you believe him in this role, which is more than you can say for 365.
Fair.
I can't stress how little we expected of him. Anyway.
And man, did he deliver though, right?
I know. But he comes home, he plugs his car in, he sees the family across the way, and he goes inside to go and tuck his daughter in, and he realizes that Megan Fox has changed all the pictures in the picture frames, so his wife is not in them.
Which okay, that's crazy, right? Like your robot maid, butler, lady, childcare person takes your wife out of the photos because like it was making your daughter sad?
Okay.
Crazy.
I have a crazy story that I don't know if I've ever told on any of the podcasts. I briefly, when I first moved to Los Angeles, I had 3 or 4 jobs to, afford rent and stuff. And one of them was to collect a rich lady's mail. But she was a defense attorney and she would get letters from prison and I would have to scan them in and send them to her.
Yeah.
And one of the people that was trying to get her to take their case was someone who had been convicted of stalking, which, by the way, very hard to do. Very few people actually get convicted of stalking. There has to be like an overwhelming amount of evidence. But one of the things that she did was broke into this guy's house and changed all of the photos in his house to photos of them.
What?
Yes. So this man came home from work and every piece of art in his home was changed to a picture of him and his ex.
Paige.
And then she ended the paragraph. She's like, it's not stalking if you love them. And I was like, no, what? No.
So your client was in jail for trying to date Machine Gun Kelly, I guess?
I guess. No, but all I got to say is the lawyer I was working for did not take that case.
Don't blame them. I also guys, if you have the kind of time to break into someone's house twice, what do you, get a hobby? Because they had to break in and okay, they've got this many picture frames of this size.
Right.
I have to get that many photos and then break back into their house. That's an insane level of commitment. Please, find a hobby.
Yes. It's not stalking if you love them. Anyway, she puts the pictures back. He goes out drinking with his old crew. They're all mad because they found out about the robots. And so they roll out to the job site to fuck shit up and kind of drag him along. And he's like, hey guys, no, because his code is the only one that will get into the Connex trailer thing where they're storing all the robots.
Yeah.
So they basically force him to put his code in and then they fuck up the robots.
So the way they do it though, Paige, is they bring him there. I think this is all premeditated. I'm just going to go ahead and say that
I think so
front.
too.
So they get him drunk at the bar. And then they take him to the job site and they don't make him put in the code necessarily. They're just like, is it one code for everybody or is it your personal code? And they're not asking because they want to give him plausible deniability.
Right.
They're asking because if he picked the code, they know it's probably his daughter or his son's birthday.
Right.
And they guess his daughter's birthday first and they get it right. They don't care about him at all.
Right.
They just want to get in there to beat up those robots.
Right.
Which I kind of get. This is the interesting part of the movie where it talks about the uprising that would happen if AI took that many jobs. Because not only is it taking construction jobs, every waiter, every service person we see, including the surgeon, is a robot.
Yeah.
So who the fuck is making money to pay bills that people actually have, right? So if you had that much homelessness caused by this And a lot of people from the ages of like 15 to 55 that have nothing to do other than dream up how to kill the rich and take society back, you're going to have like a bad sort of class revolution on some level. Ask France. But this movie doesn't deal with any of that because there are two hot people in it. And isn't that more fun?
Yeah, honestly. Anyway, hot guy number one, he comes home from this and gets in the shower. Which again brings up my question of, was this sexy or did they cast these people and make it sexy? Because if you're a 365 person, you know that shower sex is inevitable in 365 movies because famously there is a huge, gigantic shower in the first one.
And they use it.
Yeah, they do. She interrupts his shower wearing his wife's lingerie. And he says, take it off. And she says, oh, you said I could wear her clothes. And he's like, yes, but this is inappropriate. Please don't do this. And she basically is like, yeah, I'll go check on the kids in a minute because the smell of them makes them comfortable or whatever. The smell of their mom on my clothes makes them comfortable, which is bullshit. That's not the reason. But she's like, but you're tense and like, I know you're reacting to me. And she then kind of pushes him down, blindfolds him, and then uses her technology to use his wife's voice.
Yeah, she like spoofs the voice of his wife, who he is like grieving for and like very concerned about.
We just watched him go shot for shot with the boys, super drunk, then get dragged to the work site drunk. He's still drunk at this point.
I mean, when he's in this shower, he is literally washing the black, oily blood off his hands.
Yes.
Because he participated in murdering those bots. Like, he was a part of it. Anyway, I do think... Okay, so we should say this is where they like actually have sex.
Right.
She like sits him down on, I guess, the toilet.
Yeah.
But like, whatever. And then she like climbs on and is like, put it in my cloaca.
Oh, she might have a cloaca. I don't know how robots do.
There's no way she's got two holes back the page. There's no way. Just because, like, from like a functionality standpoint, why would she need both holes?
Yeah, because she doesn't poop or pee, right? Why would she need three? Why would she need any? This is what I'm saying. Like, why'd they make a sex one? But clearly there's only a sex hole there.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. She is sliding him deep inside her cloaca. I don't know how else to say it. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah. And using his wife's voice while he's blindfolded. This, to me, I don't love it because I have issues with the consent.
It made it not sexy, honestly.
Yeah, not at all.
It's like kind of gross.
The scene with his wife later is way sexier.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Because, like, they're both into it.
Well, and even the way he talks about it after of like, we'll table it. We'll talk about it when we get there.
We'll table it. But yeah, I agree.
But
anyway, he bangs it out on her cloaca and they cut to a different scene.
They cut to the very next day. He wakes up. The kids are at breakfast. He, gets the kids to go upstairs or whatever. And he's like, this can't happen. It's wrong. I don't want this to keep happening. I have a wife and kids. And she's like, but it reduces your stress levels. He's like, I don't care. Like, I don't want this.
When he first brings it up, he's like, we can't keep doing this. And she goes, and I wrote it down because it was like the way a nerd would say this. Were you not satisfied with my performance? Because your physiological output suggests that you were. And I was like, okay, but like, it had been a while. And so like, maybe like that has more to do with the output of the physiological. Gross, first off. Gross. Like, I thought it was so funny that she said it that way. I was like, that's the way Chat GPT would talk dirty.
Ooh, but he leaves after this conversation. They do not reach a consensus. He's like, fucking stop. And she's like, won't. She's a predator.
But I mean, I think in his mind, he doesn't have to reach a consensus because he is her primary user. It feels weird to say that. But like,
right.
She shouldn't have the ability to not, right?
Right.
But because she has redone her programming, she can just do whatever she wants.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So he shows up at work and they're like, hey man, somebody fucked up all the robots and the only person with a code to get in is you. So either you fuck some shit up or somebody else did. So tattle or lose your job.
I would have immediately, he sort of does here. He'd been like, well, I mean, we all have our own codes. they probably just guessed mine.
Right.
And that's why it came up. That's not exactly the way he says it, but that's more or less what he says. He's like, it wasn't me.
Right.
You didn't see me banging on the sofa with the sim. It wasn't me or whatever. He's very shaggy about it.
Saw her kissing on the sofa.
It wasn't me.
But he finishes this conversation where we don't see him tattle, but we know he did eventually. But he gets a call that the hospital found a heart.
Yeah.
So the transplant goes well. His wife comes home from the hospital. Great. While that's happening, we get a brief scene of Megan Fox taking their son Max to the playground, and another child is kind of throwing a tantrum, and it wakes up Max, the baby, and she's like, your child woke mine, and then turns to the child and goes, be a good boy, shut up and go on the slide. And I'm like, yes, what?
I love that too. And the other robot is like, your primary user lowered your civility too much. And Mithrigan Fox is like, I lowered it. I'm the captain now, or whatever.
I'm the captain now.
Because when she says it, all of the robots look at her like, what? Like, oh my God, how did she do that? It's like they're looking at her like amazed.
Yes. And she just literally closes on her and she just goes, this is better. And you're like, evil.
Yeah.
Mithrigan
Fox.
But we cut home and his wife, Maggie, made lasagna, her recipe. And the little girl's like, Alex didn't make it right at all. And then you just see Megan Fox being like, little fucking brat, I'm gonna end that little girl's life. And Maggie is just like, I'm sure she tried her best. Like, hey, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
But as she's kind of talking to her, she gets dizzy and almost falls, and Megan Fox stops her from falling. Now, if you're wondering, she is holding what looks to be a 9x13, aka a 5-quart stove cast iron casserole dish. It is pretty heavy. So I could understand her maybe getting a little winded. But anywho, we cut to what seems like the next day, where Maggie wakes up to the sound of what sounds like Isla being hurt, but it's just her and Alice playing. And I think this was intentional. I think Alice did it on purpose.
Yeah.
Because Maggie comes running down the stairs, grabs the banister that Alice said that she fixed, but she clearly either didn't or rigged it so that it would fall.
Or loosened it or whatever. Yeah. I just got the idea that she didn't fix it because it looked the same level of broken as it did before.
But she grabs it, falls down the stairs, and she, admittedly, Mithrigan Fox comes over and is like, do you need me to call a doctor? No? Okay, I'll carry her back to bed. So she carries her back to bed and doesn't tell Nick. So Nick comes home from work and finds her reading to the kids in Maggie's voice. And he's like, hey, no, Maggie's home now. So don't do that. Like, their mom can read to them.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, pretty tough after she fell down the fucking stairs.
I know,
and
right?
You're just like, showgirls.
So he immediately goes to check on his wife, but she's asleep. And it's fine. She is okay.
Right.
But, you know, and he's like, "What? Just don't use her voice. It's weird. Nobody likes it."
Yeah, nobody likes it. And he's just like, I thought you said you fixed the fucking banister. She's like, happy to fix it again. Wink. And you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
But we cut to what it looks like was probably the next day or maybe the next weekend or whatever. And he has set up a romantic dinner for him and his wife. And I do love that she's like, did Alice set this up? And he's like, no, I did. I did this for you.
Yeah, but he also could be like, no, I set this up by telling her to set it up for you.
By telling her to do it, yeah.
Because she is a tool, more or less. Like, it's a weird thing because she looks so lifelike, you know? But, like, where do you put them as far as, like, how you're supposed to treat them and stuff?
Yeah.
Because, like, I would just treat them like a human because I wouldn't know what else to do. I would just, like, default to, like, please and thank yous and like treating them like you would treat a waiter or whatever.
Right.
Because I would be uncomfortable treating them like I treat like Alexa.
Right.
Because they have a face.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my line. I don't know. It seems weird.
It does seem weird. But he sets up a romantic dinner. They then eventually go back inside and they have a sex scene between the two of them that's actually great. And it very markedly different from the scenes with Mithrigan Fox. And she is like watching them, but they're very real, if that makes it. The scene's a very realistic sex scene. I mean that as a compliment. And I think serves the story well because it does prove a contrast point between what we've seen before.
Yeah, like the enthusiastic consent from both parties that is involved here. But because it's not Mithrigan Fox who's getting gone down on, she like busts in the room.
Yeah. She's like, what?
Your daughter's having a nightmare. She's asking for you.
Yes.
But like she opens the door like wide open, like doesn't like peek in, like opens the thing, revealing her in the hallway out of focus. And then of course the wife looks over and screams because that would be alarming.
It would be. Anyway, we cut to his friend from work comes over, one of the ones that was there the night they smashed all the robots. And he's basically like, yeah, my wife is leaving me because I lost my job. And also the police are coming around asking a lot of questions about what happened to those robots. And you didn't tell anyone, did you? And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you fucking did. I'm pretty sure you told them. And he beats him. He starts basically beating him up. But Alice intervenes and crushes the beer bottle in his hand, injuring him gravely, and then tosses him out. And he's like, oh, look, so you got a sim at home too. Basically being like, oh, you're in on it. Like, this is all you.
Yeah, he's more or less calling him a company man. But you know what?
Yeah.
This guy is a sim at home that he probably at least beats, but probably like sexually assault. Well,
probably
has sex with. I don't know. It's such a gray area, but like it's gross. Either way, it's not good.
Yeah, it's not good.
Did you mention that Monty showed up to blackmail him into telling the boss to drop the charges? Okay.
Well, briefly, I mean, just to cover it, he basically is like, tell the boss or I'll tell him you were involved and you'll lose your job.
Yeah. So like more or less Monty is blackmailing him into going to tell his boss to drop the charges, which like his boss is never going to drop the charges. That's never going to happen. Right. The first thing I would have done after that interaction would be to call my boss and be like, hey, I know who did it. Monty just came over here and said, because I figured out your code, it's going to make it look like you were in on it. And so you're going to get fired just like the rest of us. But I wanted to let you know because there was an altercation on the porch. We fought about it and he left.
Yeah.
And if you hear that story, it's not true. But that's not what happens. That's immediately what I would have done, though.
Of course. But we cut to the garage where she's like, hey, your kids need at least one parent and your wife's going to die. And he's like, could you fucking stop? And she's like, no, because like if she does die, I could just step in. And she does her voice. And he's like, you could never be her.
Yeah.
You could never be her. He's like, she has lived a whole life. She has the scars to prove it. And she's like, I could have scars. Where would you like them? And he's like, you don't get it.
Yeah.
You don't understand. That's not what this is. But he goes to bed. Meanwhile, she goes to the coworker's house and is like, hey, so sorry about earlier, but like he can't lose his job because Maggie's in the hospital. And he's like, yeah, well, too bad. And she's like, oh yeah, no, I didn't come to ask nicely. I'm here to beat the shit out of you. So he tries to shoot her and she grabs the gun, is about to shoot him when his sim comes out. And again, it very much suggests that he is at minimum beating that sim. It's not good. It's very bad.
It's very bad. The thing that's very sad about it, though, is that robot is trying to protect its primary user, which is that guy who we know at least is beating the shit out of it.
Right. And Mithrigan Fox is like, that makes two of us, and shoots both of them.
Yeah.
We cut to Nick goes to work the next day and they're like, by the way, your friend got murdered. The guy that we thought did this thing. And he's like, what? And they're like, you should take some time off, relax. So we cut to the house because obviously they don't expect him to come home early. And Maggie, his wife, is in the tub and Mithrigan Fox comes in and is like, hey, cool. I mean, it's nice to see your husband satisfied. He's always great when he's satisfied. And she's like, what do you fucking know about it? And she's like, nothing. And then just leaves. Like, immediately bails. She was clearly just doing it to get under her skin.
Yeah, I do think, I mean, clearly Mithrigan Fox is like, she has faulty programming.
Right.
Nothing she does is not planned and thought out. I think she is doing this to plant the seed that they had sex to create division between them. And like in her mind, she's doing this to protect his feelings and their kids' feelings.
Right.
Because she has a heart transplant and they don't live very long, quote unquote, or whatever, like in her mind. Because, and I did look it up. I was like, is that at all true? And the survival rate is actually, I think, pretty good for a surgery that crazy. But your 1 year survival rate's like 90%, 5 year is 75, 10 year is 50%. And like, it does drop, but like the people who are getting those surgeries are typically older and maybe wouldn't have had 10 years left anyway.
If you didn't get the surgery, you wouldn't have 10 years.
Oh,
so
yeah, no.
Take the
they're
10.
all extra. Yeah, it's like an extra life in a video game. Yeah.
Yes.
So like take it, like one up and get out of there, like live the best life you can. But it's crazy that she's like, well, in like, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years, she's going to die. So like, I should just kill her now so you can grieve and then eventually get about the business of pleasing my cloaca.
But yes. Anyway, he gets home and his wife is at the table with a wine glass, so you know things are going to be bad. And she's like, the kids are in bed. You fucked the robot. And he's like, oh my God, it was one time. Made out with a hot dog. It was one time.
She said the kids are in bed. And it's in the garage. Like she tells it when it's in the bath with her, not in the bath, but in the bathroom while she's in the bath. And she realizes that Massimo banged Mithrigan Fox. She's like, go to the garage. I was like, hell yeah.
Right. Oof. But she's then confronting him of like, when did this happen? How did this happen? And he's like, I did not want this to happen. But unfortunately, the argument he uses, it's like, I don't get mad at you for your vibrator. And it's like, clearly this is different.
It is different. I think that like he does point that out. And I don't know. Sex is like weird and it should be whatever you and your partner are comfortable with. So like, if you're both comfortable with that, great. Like I could see a world where like, sort of like you are about the auto blow. Like, I don't care. Like where someone would be like on the spectrum with this sort of a thing too. But I do think Maggie, his wife, is not okay with it.
Right.
And so like, clearly it's a problem. But it's not the same as using a vibrator because your vibrator doesn't have a face and a voice and put your kids to bed.
Right, exactly. So as Alice is overhearing this fight, she goes to get the baby. And this is where she says, hi, little burden, and goes to drown the baby.
Yeah. Because they're fighting and she wants to make Nick's life better. So she thinks, because again, she has faulty programming at this point, that the only way to make Nick's life better long term is to kill his entire family. Yes.
She's a family annihilator.
But not her family. But yeah, I mean, more or less. But she's doing it. It's that trope. It's like a fair partner murdering the current family to become the current family.
Right.
But yeah, there are some murderers that have done this sort of thing in real life.
Oh, yeah.
Although I don't think that it's typically, this is bad, it's typically the husband that kills the wife and kids to be with the affair partner. It's rarely the woman that does the killing.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But that's sort of what this is.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Isla, the daughter, finds out what's going on, runs downstairs and is like, yo, the robot's trying to drown the fucking baby.
Yeah.
And so they run upstairs. He tries to break the door down. The wife, Maggie, goes through the next bedroom, out the window, onto the roof, and into the window of the bathroom.
Yeah, because you can sort of walk around on the roof on that second floor, and she does. And she like walks around, gets in the bathroom, and that's when Mithrigan Fox takes her hand off the door so Massimo can come through it. But when Megan Fox takes her hand off the door, she's like strangling Maggie, the wife, and is like about to kill her when Massimo sort of hits both of them with a lamp. Like he sort of hits Maggie too.
But he specifically gets Mithrigan Fox with the marble base of the lamp.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yes. But now he's got like a broken lamp and Megan Fox has grabbed the end of it. And Maggie has the end of the cord and she's like, hey, let go, and plugs it in, electrocuting Mithrigan Fox.
Yeah.
So the cops show up along with an ambulance. They're going to take the little boy, the baby, to the hospital just for observation. And they're going to take Mithrigan Fox in for testing. And she basically is like, we're going to the hospital. You take some time. Like, we're not okay still.
Yeah. We need a minute because this is crazy.
Right. Meanwhile, we cut to them trying to repair the Megan Fox model, and they're like, oh, these ones are faulty. I don't know when they're going to start recalling these models. And as they're doing it, we realize that Megan Fox or her robot character is rewriting and moving all of the other robots around. So like she's moving the data, she's resetting their calibrations.
And as they're like doing the diagnostic and like plugging her into like the mainframe computer, they sort of like, oh my God, she's like rewriting code on that computer and like it's multiplying across the servers. So they like try and like shut it down. And I think they do shut it down and hold it into the room that they're in because it doesn't go like nationwide or anything. But it is in that room because this is one of those like it's like a straight up horror movie.
Right.
Because out of focus, you see the two technicians working on her in focus.
Right.
And then you see another one under a sheet sit up out of focus.
Yes.
And it looks just like her, but if she really wanted to speak to the manager.
Yes.
Like that's the version of Mithrigan Fox we get.
Yep.
And then she kills them.
Yeah, she murders everyone in
Yeah.
that room that's not a robot. We then cut to the bar where Nick is basically drinking and coming to terms with what just happened.
Yeah.
And the bartender is a spark, or that's what they call the Sims, basically, is a spark. And who should show up but Mithrigan Fox with the fucked up face? And she basically is like, I love you. Like, I want to be with you. I will murder everyone to be with you.
Literally. They had sex one time, and she's ready to murder the world, Paige. How good do you think he is at banging cloacas?
Look, I've seen 365. I've seen the shower scene. I've seen all of it.
So you get it.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
He did shoot that guy's hands for Laura, so, you know. But he then tells her, he's like, yes, of course, we could experience life together and death, and reaches around the back of her head to pull some of her wiring out. The lights go out. The hospital's dark because she was kind of the main one on the mainframe. So it like took a second for it to switch over to Blondie.
I feel like she got far enough into the mainframe to be able to control the power setting of
Right.
like not even the robots, but also like the hospital and stuff. But she can't control the robots to do things.
Right, just to shut them down.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a weird balance because like they have to explain why she isn't just like using all of the literal thousands of robots that are now like
Right.
all of the workers. They have replaced the lower class as far as workload, which is insane. So like there would be thousands and thousands of Megans, right?
Way more interesting conversation to have in this movie, but instead we're like, his shoulders though.
I know. This movie I think is so funny because it misses all of the good like commentary it could
Right.
have. And just as like, but like sexy though, right?
But like his shoulder, like let's show all his tattoos, even the butt one.
Even the bad ones.
Yep. Anyway, so blonde Alice, Mithrigan Fox squared, is walking through the hospital looking for the wife and the kids. And they notice that the doctors and nurses who are sparks are all kind of paused and they're like, oh shit.
They're literally just like frozen.
Yeah. So they get the baby and they make a run for it.
And there's a jump scare here because the daughter is like looking for the mom and is like trying to like sneak around this like hospital, and the lights are dark and like everyone's frozen because they're all sparks as well. And you think Mithrigan Fox is going to snatch up that daughter, but the mom grabs her. But it scared the shit out of me, man.
Yeah. The mom grabs her and a real nurse shows up, like a human nurse.
Yeah.
And is like, hey, you can't be back here. And she just murders that real nurse, who then drops all the vials she was carrying.
Yeah.
Which means that as they crawl away to try and get past her, they have to crawl through the broken glass, which cuts the mom's hand.
Yeah.
But they get to Max, the baby. They pull him out. They hide, but Mithrigan finds the blood. And so she's like tracking them through the hospital. They accidentally leave their cell phone. And at this point, Nick has realized what is happening, is trying to call them, can't get through, but he takes off for the hospital in his car. Meanwhile, the mom and the two kids get outside into the ER, like ambulance bay.
Yeah.
She puts the kids in an ambulance, tries to steal an ambulance to drive away, but Mithrigan Fox squared runs up, grabs her out of the car, and is beating the living shit out of her.
Literally rips the car door off.
Yes.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. And literally beats the shit out of her and then pushes her up against a wall and is like, maybe if I had your heart, he would actually love me, and tries to rip the heart out of her chest.
She tries to go full Kali Ma in the fucking hospital car park.
Yes. And Maggie, the wife, sees that Nick is driving with his car, and she just goes, fine, and then like kicks Megan Fox in front of the car. He then crashes that car into an ambulance, like T-boning Mithrigan Fox in between, and he's unconscious. So Maggie pulls him out of the car.
Yeah, and the car sort of catches on fire too. So it's not like one of those situations where you shouldn't move someone with a head injury or a possible head injury, because the car's gonna like light up on fire and they're going to burn to death. So you sort of have to move him out. And she is like pulling him out and like putting him on the ground and trying to like bring him back, although he isn't dead here and she's not really doing CPR.
Right.
So I don't think she does anything really to help bring him back to life. But she then gets attacked by Mithrigan Fox, who is like burned up and is like just like a shell of what she once was.
Right.
It's honestly very scary. It's like Terminator on some level, how they just won't stop.
It is.
Because they're not human. They're a machine.
And so she's trying to strangle the wife. She pulls a piece of shrapnel out of her back and is going to stab her with it. But Nick hits her with the bumper of his car that he has now pulled off. And then the wife grabs the piece of shrapnel and stabs her in the head with it. We then cut to...
Wait. One thing before we cut away. When the wife stabs her in the face and Mithrigan Fox dies,
right,
that's when the lights in the hospital turn on and all the staff start walking around again. It's honestly pretty well done. Like, I really liked the way they telegraphed it. Although, if you're not super paying attention, you could very easily be like, why isn't she able to control everyone?
Right.
But I do think there's enough on the screen to sort of tell that part of the story too. They just don't explicitly say it.
Right. And they do end up in the like holding each other on their knees like Terminator.
Yeah.
Like, you know, very much reminiscent of that cut right before the factory at the end of Terminator. But we cut to a few days later. He's in the hospital. She's in the hospital too, but she's about to get released.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going home, and when you get out of here, you should join us there. Basically being like, we cool, that robot was clearly evil, and let's put it all behind us.
Yeah.
We cut to that same room where they're cleaning up the bodies of all the techs that were trying to fix the bots, and the guy's like, weird, and goes to plug it back in, and it starts uploading all that data again, and all the bots in the room go like catatonic and immediately murder him because they are all infected.
I love this part because he walks in with like two, you think they're like assistants, and he's like, well, we got to clean this up. We got to figure out what happened and then make sure nobody finds out about it. But because he had just turned the computer on, the upload was already starting. So you sort of see their heads like dip a little bit. And then as he finishes talking, they like raise back up and they just murk him. They just kill him.
Yep.
And then you see Megan Fox like wake up again and you're like, oh yes, I cannot wait for the next one.
Yes. And that's the movie.
So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what did you think about Mithrigan Fox, or as it's better known, Subservience?
Better than I expected it to be. My expectations were on the floor. And if you go into this expecting a 365 amount of acting, you will be pleasantly surprised. It is very watchable. Is it great? No. Is Mithrigan the better version? Yes. It's not covering any new ground. I wish they had dug more into the classism implications of the automation of the workforce. And I feel like they had room to do that and they didn't. I kind of wish they would have. But other than that, it's not bad. You could do way worse.
You could do way worse. I think you could do way better. I think other movies have done way better, but I do agree if you are looking for a like 365, but if it was a horror movie kind of a vibe, that's this. Although, I will say, if you go in expecting 365, you're going to be like, man, this is way better than I thought it was. If you go in expecting Mithrigan, you're going to be very disappointed because it's not nearly on that level. But it is a serviceable, like, Netflix bodice ripper horror movie, if you will.
Sure.
But I agree on everything you said about the class implications and stuff like that. Like, all of that stuff was infinitely more interesting than either of them were sexy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
Very few.
Well, hit us with your fun facts.
Very
Megabox,
few fun facts. So in Russia, this actually has a different name, and the robot is named Megan in the Russian version because there's a virtual assistant named Alisa in Russian, kind of similar to our Alexa. And so they thought Alice was too close. So there's that.
Interesting. Okay.
Madeline Zima, who is the actress who plays Maggie, the wife, previously played the daughter in The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, which is a film with similar plot elements minus robots. It's where a human is doing the home wrecking.
There you go.
There you go. And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. So I don't have a budget for this, because it's a Netflix movie and they don't really talk about any of that stuff. But I do have a filming location for you.
Oh, okay.
If you would like to take a guess as to where you think they filmed this movie.
I'm going to say Romania.
Oh, Paige, you're not that far off. It was
Yeah?
Sofia, Bulgaria.
Bulgaria.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
I did check to see if they had announced how well it did, and they haven't yet. So they haven't said anything
Okay.
about how it's done. Although when I saw it, it was like one of the top movies on Netflix at the time.
It was for a couple weeks. Yeah.
So like, I'm assuming it did okay. I don't know that it did well enough to get a sequel that they set up, but it did well enough for it to be one of the top movies for a while on Netflix. So I'm sure at some point they'll give us some information on that, but they haven't yet as of this recording. So unfortunately for your box office, I don't have anything and I apologize. But Paige, do you want to hit us with that scary scale?
Sure. Our scary scale was a scale of 1 to 10 on how scary we found the movie today when we watched it. 1 being Ghostbusters, 10 being Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Todd.
This is going to be a 2 from me. It wasn't really all that scary, but
Sure.
there were some jump scary moments, but overall not scary.
Yeah, I'm at a 1 for this one.
Yeah, that checks out. But Paige, can we give it a roar scale too? Just because it is that
Sure.
kind of movie. I'm going to give it a 1 because not that sexy, because she is pretending in so much as that she's mimicking his wife's voice
Yeah.
when he's going to town on that cloaca.
I'm going to give it a 1 as well, and that's purely for the scene with him and the wife, because I feel like that scene is great, and the rest of it not so much.
That's the only note I have with that scene is she interrupts it. Mithrigan Fox interrupts it.
I would have watched the rest of that. Yeah.
Agreed.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, that's your roar scale.
Hey,
So, Paige, this week I made you revisit, because we've both seen this before. This was our second
both
time
seen
with it
this.
at least. I made you revisit Subservience. So, what movie are we doing next week while we continue Women That Kill Month?
ooh, I'm so excited that we're finally going to do Species.
I forgot Species was next. Yeah, so your homework for next week is to watch Species and just try and do the math on how long and powerful her tongue would have to be to achieve the result she achieves through the back of that dude's head.
Yeah, what that tongue do.
Whew, a lot. But that's your homework for next week.
And hey, Todd, do you have any reviews for us?
I do. I'm going to read a Spotify comment from our most recent Heretic episode. So this one comes in from Emily, who says, I'm glad Todd is here for the nope of apologetics that we encounter with every religious movie. Loved the movie, loved the combo.
There you go.
Wait, okay, I gotta read this one. I'm so sorry. I'll read this one too. This one's from Tabber, and they say, the Eddie Izzard reference killed me. I quoted it 3 seconds before the words left Todd's mouth, and I literally squawked with laughter in the shower. Wow, I did not read this beforehand. Thanks, Todd. Secondly, so glad I can make you giggle in the shower. But Emily and Tabor, thank you so much for that Spotify comment, or those Spotify comments. We got a lot of Spotify comments on that episode. It was a popular one. People liked that movie, man.
Yeah. people
Anyway,
did like
thank you
it.
for your Spotify comment. If you want to have me read your Spotify comment or 5-star Apple review, leave us one of those things and I will do just that.
Awesome.
So guys, if you like this show but want to hear Paige and I talk about romantic comedies or just regular romantic movies, check out our other podcast. Some might call it a sister podcast called Romancing the Pod, where we do just that weekly. It's a lot like this show, but for romance and romantic comedies, because Paige doesn't like them. So we make her watch them, just like you guys make me watch horror over here. But if you want to follow me, I am at Todd J. Awesome on all the social media. Paige is at Rampage Wesley on Instagram?
Yes. And TikTok.
And just Paige Wesley on Twitter, because you got that before some CEO lady and she wanted it, but you wouldn't give it back. And I respect you for that.
Refuse.
Also, Paige
Suck it, other Paige Wesley.
Paige is also on another podcast. It's great. You should check it out. It's called Cult Podcast with Armando Torres, who is a wonderful person. And if you want to support this show, go to Patreon at patreon.com/horrorvirgin, where there are a lot of great levels and a lot of great things. We do the Patreon shout outs at the beginning of every episode. We do listener requests, stuff like that, bonus episodes. So you'll be getting all of that content, plus episodes a day early with no ads, and who doesn't love that? So sign up for the Patreon and get a lot of great stuff.
That's going to be it for us, you guys, on Paige.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd.
Keep it ooky spooky.
Yeah. Have an amazing week, guys. Bye. I know you don't like when I say cloaca nerds.